Joining me now is the former co-chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. I'm delighted to welcome Congressman Yvette Clarke, who represents the 9th Congressional District of New York. Congresswoman, it's great to see you. I always enjoy our conversations. I want to know, as I was talking to Sheldon Whitehouse earlier, what does our country need to kind of do to get beyond talking about what we need to do on climate and actually doing serious things, particularly as we approach a new round of UN climate talks in November?
Well, first of all, thanks. It's great to be back with you once again, Steve. There's a lot that is being discussed right now on Capitol Hill, and we're looking at moving forward as part of our recovery on infrastructure.
Right.
And I think that creates the greatest opportunity for us to address what we know is an existential threat to our nation, and that's climate change. The climate crisis demands that we do immediate and bold action, and the need to transition to a clean economy is fueled by clean energy and generates millions of new jobs and from electricity and transportation. So there's a lot that we can be doing right now. Those conversations have begun to take place. Members recognize that a 21st century infrastructure really means resiliency. It means that we have to be good stewards, and that means addressing climate change, which is with us.
One of the conversations I had recently was very intriguing. It was with former Secretary of Energy Ernie Moniz. And he's had, sort of looking at an energy jobs coalition, so that as we look at the future of infrastructure, we look at the future of climate change policies, and we look at the fact that a lot of people need jobs during a time of transition in this crisis. Is there any serious talk about that? I mean, it almost has a kind of works progress administration feel to, if you're going to rewire this country, why not put a lot of people to work in the process of doing that? Is that part of the conversation?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the bottom line to it is this is the next industrial age for the United States of America. We run the wheels off the rails on the infrastructure of the 19th and 20th century. The current conditions mean that we have to bring our infrastructure up to snuff with the realities of how we live our lives in the 21st century. One of those ways is we've all had to, due to the pandemic, adopt and adapt to a virtual life basically overnight. And that adoption and adaptability has only been able to touch a portion of our population. There are parts of this country where we have what we call broadband deserts. There's work to be done in that space. That means employment. That means infrastructure. We can go down the line, ways in which we need to shore up our energy grid. We saw what happened with Texas. The once in 100-year occurrence created a massive and cascading disaster in the midst of a disaster. And so we know that the investment we make right now will, first of all, new industry will emerge as a result of that investment. The work that must be done to strengthen our ability to deliver clean energy and build out infrastructure for clean energy is a must. That creates jobs, that creates entrepreneurship and opportunity. And also knowing that we've got to maintain this, again, is an industry. Everything that we do to build out the United States of America, it pays for itself in the long run, because it creates much more productivity among the American people. It gives more access to more remote locations, be they rural or suburban, to other avenues for opportunity and for work. It's a win-win. And we are certainly looking at that because, quite frankly, we're in the midst of a pandemic. And if that hasn't been life-altering to all Americans, let alone globally, then something within us is a bit off kilter. We've got to turn the page on this pandemic. And in so doing, turn the page on all of these existential threats that have been laid bare by the fact that, again, we've had to rapidly adapt to a virtual life. We recognized that without a clean energy source going forward, the carbon that we spew from these legacy industries, it is only going to compound the challenges that this generation and generations to come will face.
Representative Clark, President Joe Biden has said that he wants this infrastructure bill to have bipartisan support. We're hearing rumors it's upwards of potentially $3 trillion. When you begin spending money and authorizing money out there, a lot of folks know that that's going to make a major impact across the nation. Do you think there is enough common overlap between the parties right now that we can get a bipartisan infrastructure bill that deals with climate?
Yeah, we're having a lot of those discussions now. And as a matter of fact, we just did a hearing on the LIFT Act just yesterday in the Energy and Commerce Committee. It's going to take some conversation. You have to remember that there are certain energy sectors that have meant a lot of wealth to certain parts of the country, have meant a delivery of energy to other parts of the country that has been seamless for a generation or more. We know that this transition is going to be challenging. And so the challenge for us is to, build up a workforce, retrain a workforce, orient a workforce to taking on the new positions of the 21st century, and working with colleagues to get to that win-win place where we can make sure that we can get bipartisan support for the work that has to happen going forward. We're beginning to see some recognition of the crises before us, particularly with respect to climate, the costly nature of it in terms of lives, livelihood, property. And so I anticipate that it's going to take more conversation, but I think that the door isn't shut to that conversation. And as long as that door is open, we can come to an agreement.
Well, I just want to, for the record, give credit to Ryan White, who's the Deputy Director of the U.S. Institute of Peace, for that question on bipartisanship. I saw it on my nose in it. Your question, thanks for asking, Congressman. But let me, ask you just I don't know how to ask this, but I'm going to try. I think that if you look back at American history and big transportation infrastructure decisions, for a lot of Americans, they were great. They worked. For a lot of other Americans, they were marginalized, they were pushed aside, they were left behind. If you talk to Anthony Fox, our former Secretary of Transportation, he would talk about we need to undo a lot of that unfairness that got baked in to large-scale American infrastructure. And I guess the question I have for you is, are we at a point after the George Floyd murder, after the stress we've seen on inequality, on race in this country, is fairness, are you confident that fairness is going to be baked into the future, or are your antenna still up, red flags, worried about that? Is that a fair question?
It is a fair question, and I'm confident and red flags. So I just believe that, we know what we know now. The data's in, the information about the inequities of our society have been laid bare, and we have an opportunity to change course, to create fairness and equity within everything that we do, touching every community across this nation, particularly the most vulnerable who have actually paid the most dear price with respect to this pandemic. I know that members of Congress on both sides of the Hill, both in the Senate and the House, have given recognition to this. Now it's up to us to do the work. It's up to us to prevail, not only at the federal level, but where the rubber meets the road in our state legislatures, as well as our municipalities. It's critical for us to move forward, baking into policy righting the imbalance, the inequity that has left so many impoverished and vulnerable in our society. And I think this is the opportune moment to lift that up and to write that course.
Well, Representative Yvette Clarke, who is chair of the Homeland Cybersecurity Infrastructure Protection and Innovation Subcommittee, really appreciate it. Let's have another deep dive on cybersecurity and innovation. That would be another good 20 minutes to spend together. But thank you so much, as always, for joining us.
Absolutely. And, cyber is tied to infrastructure as well. As our systems become more and more technologically advanced, we have to make sure that we protect our critical infrastructure. So thanks again for having me, and I look forward to that deep dive.
Really look forward to it. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.